Welcome to Podcasting for Business Owners. I'm your host, Laura McRae, a podcast consultant, educator, and self-confessed podcast nerd. If you're thinking of launching a podcast or want to grow the one you have, you're in the right place. Hold on to your headphones and let's go. Hello and welcome back to Podcasting for Business Owners, the podcast that helps you share your story, lead your industry, and grow your network through podcasting. I'm your host, Laura McRae, and today we're talking all things trailers. I'm sharing why your podcast needs a trailer and how to create one that hooks your audience from the start. If you've ever watched a movie trailer before deciding whether to buy a ticket, you already know why trailers matter. It's your chance to say, this is what I'm all about. If this sounds like your thing, then come and join me. By the end of this episode, you'll know how to create an impactful podcast trailer, what to include, and some common mistakes to avoid. First things first, what exactly is a podcast trailer? Like I said before, think of it like a movie trailer. You wouldn't spend your time and money watching a movie without knowing it's your cup of tea, right? A trailer gives you a sneak peek into the story and what to expect. Your podcast trailer works in the same way. It's a short, engaging introduction that tells your audience what your podcast is about, who it's for, and why they should listen. Now let's break down why you must have a trailer. First impressions matter, and your trailer is often the first thing potential listeners hear. It sets the tone, gives them a taste of your personality, and makes them want more. They're also good for SEO and discoverability. A trailer helps your podcast show up in search results even before your full episodes have been released. And a good trailer shows that you're serious about your podcast. It builds trust with your audience and positions you as a professional. Trailers are great for building up hype for your podcast. Like a movie trailer, studios promote films months in advance to build hype. And your podcast trailer lets you do the same. You can share it on social media, email it to your list, and get your network excited before your first episode drops. When I launched my podcast, I used the trailer to build excitement before the big day. I shared it on Instagram stories, emailed it to my mailing list, and even asked friends to spread the word. By the time my first episode went live, I already had an audience waiting. One of my clients launched her trailer, and then the next day she had an in-person event. At the event, she gave everyone the link to her trailer, and there and then she asked everyone to follow and subscribe to her podcast whilst at the event. That way, when the podcast has launched, the first episodes were dropped straight into their feed. But one of the big benefits of launching a trailer before any of your episodes, which a lot of people miss, is that trailers are good for testing your tech. Launching with a trailer first gives you time to ensure your hosting platform is set up correctly and that your show is approved on all the major platforms like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. So some platforms take longer than others to list your podcast. Spotify generally works straight away, but at the present time in February 2025, Apple can take a couple of hours to recognise your podcast, and YouTube can even take 24 hours. So you want to make sure that your trailer's live on all the platforms before you release an episode, because it will be embarrassing if you say that your podcast has launched, and then when people go and look for your episode, they can't find it. So you might think it's okay because you've gone on Spotify and seen it's there, but someone else might have gone onto Apple and they can't find it. So by launching with a trailer first, you're making sure all your tech is set up and that you're on all the platforms. Then when episode 1 drops, you know that the tech's fine and that episode is going to go on all platforms without any problems. Now let's talk about what makes a podcast trailer stand out. I'm going to give you a simple framework now that you can follow. First, start with a hook. Grab your listener's attention right away with a bold question or statement. For example, you could say something like, "Are you tired of wasting hours on social media without getting results? Then this is the podcast for you." A strong hook makes people stop and listen, so you don't want to skip this step. Next, you need to welcome your audience and introduce yourself. Share your name, the name of your podcast, and a quick explanation of why you're hosting the show. For instance, for me, I'd say something like, Hi, I'm Laura, the host of Podcasting for Business Owners. I started this podcast to help entrepreneurs like you grow your audience and share your expertise through podcasting. Then explain what your podcast is about. Keep it brief, maybe just 1 or 2 sentences. For example, you could say something like this. This podcast is all about practical podcasting tips for busy business owners who want to use their show to grow their brand and connect with their audience. After that, let listeners know what they'll gain from tuning in. Highlight the benefits of your podcast. You could say something like this. You'll walk away with actionable tips to launch your podcast, keep it consistent and reach your ideal listeners, plus plenty of inspiration to keep you motivated along the way. And finally, end with a call to action. You must never forget this step. Let your audience know exactly what to do next. You could just say something simple like follow or subscribe now so you don't miss any episodes. That works absolutely fine. And here's an important tip. Keep it short. I recommend that your trailer be no longer than 3 minutes. Again, think of it like a movie trailer. It's just a taste of what your podcast is about. You don't want to do a whole story. Save that for episode 1. Now here are some common mistakes to avoid. Like I just mentioned then, don't confuse your trailer with your first episode. The trailer should just focus on what listeners can expect. Don't go straight into a podcast episode. I've heard this before, where people introduce themselves and their story. That's okay for just a little bit, but it shouldn't be a whole episode. Save that for episode 1. Episode 1 is when you start to nurture your audience and they get to know you. Your trailer is just telling them what your podcast is about, who it's for, and what to expect. Keep it short and snappy. Attention spans are so short these days, and long trailers can just lose people's attention. And again, like I mentioned earlier, always have a clear call to action. If you don't tell listeners what to do next, they might not take the step you want them to take. If you're not sure what to say, just ask them to subscribe and follow. Another thing I often see is that people forget to tick the trailer button on their hosting platform, and so your hosting platform thinks it's an episode. So when you upload anything to your hosting platform, there's a tick box that says episode, trailer or bonus. And if you don't tick the trailer button, your hosting platform will just presume it's an episode. So it will just go in the feed like a normal episode. But by ticking the trailer button, the trailer will appear like a trailer and be at the top of your feed and will stay there permanently. And if you don't have a trailer already, don't worry about it. You can just add one, because like I said, if you add a trailer and then just tick the trailer button, your trailer will appear like a trailer. It won't be in the usual episode feed. So yeah, if you've got a podcast already and no trailer, I recommend you record yourself a trailer now. So now if creating a trailer and launching your podcast feels a little overwhelming, I've got you covered. I offer one-on-one podcast launch services where I guide you every step of the way, from setting up your hosting platform to editing your episodes, promoting your podcast and even giving you content guidance. I'm here to make podcasting simple and stress-free for you. Together we'll create a trailer that hooks your audience, episodes that deliver value, and a launch plan that's easy to follow and helps you to produce a podcast that you're proud of. If you're ready to finally start your podcast, you can book a free call with me. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. So, your podcast trailer is your first impression, your elevator pitch, and your invitation to listeners, all in one. Take the time to create it thoughtfully, avoid the common mistakes I spoke about, and keep it short. And remember, if you're stuck or unsure, I'm here to help. So if you're ready to create a trailer, I'd love to hear it. Share it on Instagram and tag me in. My Instagram handle is podcast.support.services. I look forward to hearing it. If you found value in this podcast, please leave a 5-star rating, and a review would be even better. Your support shows that this is a good show, which will attract high-profile guests and in turn deliver greater value to you. This podcast is produced and edited by me. Don't waste your time on editing. Let me help you with your podcast. Check out the links in the show notes to get in touch.